We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's October 4th here in Seoul. I'm Shin-Yoon, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Nal Song.
Good morning.
Happy Wednesday. And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. South Korean video game company Nexon is soon to hire new employees. It always attracts lots of applicants because of the perks. Not only do rookie developers earn around $37,000 a year, but they're also able to choose when to come and get off work whilst receiving $1,800 worth of welfare points. That's why surveys show that Nexon is one of the most popular dream job options among young Koreans. Moving on, this year the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine has been awarded to the scientists who developed the mRNA COVID-19 vaccine. They're Professor Katalin Karayoko and Drew Weissman. The Nobel Prize Committee lauded the two laureates, taking note of how they quickly developed a vaccine during one of the greatest health crises against humanity in modern times. During the pandemic, vaccines from Moderna and Pfizer used mRNA. Unlike traditional vaccine technology that uses dead or weakened versions of the virus, mRNA takes a part of the virus's genetic code, then the body's immune system starts developing viral proteins. This makes it faster and more flexible, which is why it has been used for more vaccines for other diseases. And you can find almost everything on YouTube these days, even YouTube channels made by Korean thugs. According to the National Police Agency, from last September, a total of 11 mobsters have created their own YouTube channels. Their videos show them taking part in organized crime, how to earn money, illegally of course, as well as glorifying their group brawls. And the police are concerned that these videos could affect many young people, specifically teens, YouTube's main audience, and a big age group that makes up the gangster population in Seoul. They demanded that YouTube take these videos down because they could lead to people copying them and their behavior. Experts also pointed to how the characteristics of a gangster have changed over time. Compared to the older generation, thugs nowadays, also dubbed MZ or gangsters in Korea, seem to be flaunting their wealth and glorifying their illicit behavior online, specifically through social media. And this has actually expedited the process of police identifying and investigating cases. Up till May, a total of 1,264 gangsters were arrested, and 6 out of 10 of them turned out to be in their 30s or younger. So Walter, here in the studio, what do you think about the characteristics of these so-called MZ or gangsters these days?
Well, I too have noticed the amount of gang-related videos on social media, and actually quite surprised that they are posted. Not because it's not uncommon to see gang social media, because you see it all over the world, from America to also terrorist groups that have their own social media accounts as well. But the content related to this area I find fascinating because during the, let's say, terrorist organizations or the gang organizations in other countries, they do their best to hide their face.
Right.
However, here in South Korea, and dare I say, like maybe I'm getting myself into trouble here, it seems really silly that they're uploading their face on social media because that's just clear evidence for the police. They don't have to go looking too far. It's not like they have, oh, it kind of looks like this person. No, it's clearly this person. So I think the MZ gangs are a bit dumb.
A little silly in your
opinion.
All right, what about you, Nels? Experts are saying that we should be regulating this because of imitative crimes that could happen. But where do you stand on this? Do you think that social media should regulate these thug YouTubers from coming about?
No.
Why not?
Because they're, like Walter was saying, they're uploading evidence that they can use willingly, so just let them keep flaunting it and they'll figure it out eventually and stop it themselves. But I really don't, I also think it's silly that they would do this, but yeah, just let them do it.
And isn't it quite fascinating how, compared to the older generation of thugs, that these people are actively posting their behavior online?
Yeah.
But I am concerned that it might cause a lot of youngsters, especially teens, to look at it and be like, this is cool. Because at the end of the day, it's really not.
It's not cool, man.
It's not cool. And that was our news feed for this Wednesday. Let's head into our main discussion topic. We're just coming back from Chuseok, and it was a time to meet many relatives, many who we can't see on a regular basis. And that explains why they could ask a lot of questions, sometimes ones that we deem a bit sensitive. Take a listen to what they are. Are you dating anyone? When are you getting married? These are some of the most popular questions asked by relatives you see during the holidays in Korea. Back in March, Statistics Korea found that the number of Koreans getting married was at a record low in 2022. For 11 straight years, the figure has decreased. Experts attribute this to higher living costs and also the astronomical amounts it seems you have to pay to tie the knot. When are you going to get married? Are you seeing anyone serious? This is one of the most common, yet most feared questions one can receive over the holidays. But I guess not for you two in the studio, since you've already tied the knot. So before that, did you guys get nagged with this type of question over the holidays?
Well, luckily for me, I was never nagged with this question. And not only that, I got married quite young. So I wasn't at the sort of panic age of what the so-called invisible panic age that men get to before they start asking this, because I was, I think, 31 or 32 at the time. That was quite early, but you'll wait to hear what Nael when she got married, because a lot different to me. But having a baby at one point, because we got married and about 2 years later we had a baby. Between there was always the, are you going to have a baby? Are you thinking about having a baby? Or we should have a baby? That was the question that we got asked most. But in regards to marriage, I also said to my mother, I was like, I'm not planning to get married as well. So a lot of things changed.
So you were fortunate. Before you got married, you didn't get those nagging questions of whether you met the one.
I just also pretend not to hear what they say. So,
that's a really good way to do it. Sorry, what?
Yeah, I'm just eating.
That's a really good tip. What about you now?
Walter was talking about the age that I got married, but we need to talk about what age they started asking me these questions. So mine started around the age 22, 23.
Quite young.
Yeah, because I have a lot of older cousins who aren't married, and all the adults in the extended family would ask, so when are you gonna get married? You should get going. But, I got married around 26, so it didn't last too long. And I actually haven't gone back to see other relatives at this point, but I'm kind of scared because now it's time that they start asking about children, like Walter said. But then again, like I was saying, I do have a lot of other cousins, and there's a lot of, job, college, marriage questions to go around until they come back to me. So I've got a little while left. But with the amount of nagging, it's not just in our heads, because the average age of marriage has increased. Let's take a look at the screen. As you can see, back in 2005, men's average age in Korea of getting married was 30.9, which I thought was still surprisingly high. For women, however, it was 27.7. As of 2022, men's average age was 33.7 years old, and women's average became 31.3. So a bigger jump there. But we need to remember that this is the average, which means many people marry at a higher age than this number. And like I was saying, I got married at 26. So comparatively, I got married younger than the 2005 average.
Right. In 17 years, we've seen the average age people first get married jump up by 3 to 4 years, which shows that even around me, a lot of my friends who got married, they're not a lot of them.
Yeah, it's a few number.
Exactly. They're in their late 20s, and they consider themselves to be quite young. But then I see my early 30s aunties out there being like, hey, I want to get married soon, because there is still that pressure from our older generation parents and grandparents saying, hey, late 20s is the time to go. But it's not really the case now, as you just showed through the stats. But not only is the average age that people are getting married for the first time increasing, but also the number of people who actually want to tie the knot has been dropping. And this has shaken up the wedding scene entirely. So why don't we first talk about what a traditional Korean wedding looked like before, and now how it has evolved. Starting with you now.
Yeah, obviously the traditional wedding, what you imagine for the Korean wedding is the bride and groom wearing the hanbok. They have the big hair, the big hanbok, and a lot of Korean traditional instruments. There's the officiant, and it's very traditional. Everything that they do is traditional. And I think a big thing that we still see in the modern weddings that Koreans do is the mothers wearing hanbok and walking down the aisle together. So the mother-in-laws would walk down hand in hand, and they would light the candles at the end of the aisle. And this is kind of to represent kind of lighting the future up for the future bride and groom. And it's a way of blessing the younger generation. And this is something that still happens to this day. And the mother's side, the bride's side, the mother would wear some sort of red or pinkish shade. And traditionally, the husband's side would wear bluish or greenish colored hanbok. And so these things are still old traditions that we're still carrying out here in Korea.
A lot of symbolism attached to it. What about now, though?
Well, you know, these days, though, it does seem that marriage rates are getting low and people are choosing to stay single. I would still consider South Korea what I would call a wedding day factory.
Okay.
Oh,
because basically they're pumping things in and out at a very fast pace. To be honest, I got married in very much when I say traditional, I guess modern day traditional style. And I think most Korean weddings actually look the same. Because I'm the oldest here, I've seen quite a fair few weddings, and to be honest with you, I can't really point out much of a difference between all the ones I've been to. In my opinion, there's less creativity only because of the fact that it has to be looking a certain way. The halls basically look the same as they can pump out a lot of couples in an hour. But these days, there are some couples who are choosing smaller weddings. But the problem with this is you would think, hey, smaller weddings, great, less expensive. But it turns out to be just as expensive as, let's say, a normal size wedding here in Korea, when a normal size wedding is a minimum of 200 people. So yes, it's quite interesting that we're trying to go a bit more unique and small, but yeah, it's still expensive.
As you mentioned, while you were speaking, we saw in the video right there, like the conventional wedding that a lot of people enjoy here in Korea is at wedding halls or hotels where, and as you mentioned, some people say it does feel like a factory because it's so tightly scheduled. Like you can only borrow the hall for like an hour or two and then move on for the next couple to come in. But then now a question that pops in my head is, what type of weddings did you guys enjoy? The traditional wedding, conventional wedding? Which one did you guys enjoy?
So I guess I got the full package because I got married during COVID, and all the COVID married couples out there know we were planning a bigger wedding, and then because both sides of the family were abroad, as you can see, this is embarrassing, on screen, we had a very small 8-person wedding in a party room in Hongdae. And so we had our cell phones on and live streaming it to our parents because none of them could make it. And it was really fun and meaningful. But this next one is a year after that. This is the original wedding we'd planned with all our friends and family. And yes, we like to dance, but as you can see, we are bad dancers indeed. But I think people enjoyed it because of how entertaining it is to watch bad dancers attempt to dance. And so yeah, we had this time, and as you can see, we moved on and also did the kind of the traditional thing too. This is called pebek. It's not a traditional wedding, but it's a very small ceremony for the in-laws to kind of get to know the daughter-in-law. But you know, we kind of made it so that it's the in-laws as well as my parents, and they throw chestnuts and dates, and yeah, you figure out how many kids you're gonna have.
So you really did get the full package.
Full package.
You not only did the traditional wedding, but the conventional wedding and also a small wedding.
Yeah, I guess I did like a 2.5 kind of thing.
You did a 2.5 wedding. What about you, Walter?
My wedding is going to sound super boring compared to anyone else, but like it was, I guess, what I would call modern day standardized Korean wedding. I mean, the buffet was awesome though. Like the buffet is like the highlight. Like I didn't care if people just come to the buffet because food was just amazing. But yeah, we had around 200 guests. Like I said, there's usually a 200 minimum, so like 80% of them I didn't know, to be honest with you. It was also a very short wedding because like we just mentioned, there's another wedding just behind us getting ready. And so we have to quickly do all the ceremony very quickly, take all the photos. It was a very nice wedding, but yes, it did seem very generic in terms of like what Korea does with their wedding halls.
Right, but I think a lot has changed since, as you mentioned and as we've seen in the screen with your wedding, a lot of people are now going for smaller weddings. Some are even dancing. Before, you really couldn't imagine a bride-to-be and a groom-to-be go across the hall and dance. But I think that's what our generation is showing. They're trying to change up the wedding scene. So why do you think wedding culture is changing from our generation?
I think the first biggest thing, because I got married during COVID, is the COVID wedding culture. Like we were saying, we had about 200 guests, but before that wasn't actually that big. I had a friend who ended up having 700 guests total.
700?
And that, yeah, it was just overflowing because it used to be that everybody would come and pitch in. And the Korean wedding culture is that you kind of give cash gifts and it's better to have more people. But after COVID, people have really just made it smaller and smaller because of the limits of how many people could be there.
Right.
Yeah, and I think people are thinking more about the relationship they have with the guests that they invite.
Yeah, it's the pandemic has changed things up. And before, when it was more of like our parents' festivity, now it's like to celebrate our
Yeah,
coupleship.
it's focusing a little more on the bride and groom.
Right,
Yeah.
very briefly, Walter, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just from a financial standpoint, it's quite expensive for like an hour's worth of wedding. So I think that that's a reason why many people are choosing not to get married or trying to at least reduce it. But yes, I think that the biggest change is how much money it's costing.
Right, and we also asked our viewers to specify unique traits weddings have in their country. Here's what 3 of them had to share with us. Take a look at the screen to find out. And Mulligaral said there is now abolished on-paper dowry system in India, wherein the family of the bride gives money to her daughter as an assurance of some degree of monetary independence. Tasmia Tissin said most weddings in my country would last 1 week or 1 month, comprising of 3 events for a single wedding. There's also post-marriage rituals as well. Hannah said traditionally Japanese weddings were celebrated in grand banquet halls. It was common for grooms to wear a black kimono and brides a white one known as shiromuku. Now that was really great to hear from all our viewers out there in different parts of the world, but now let's hear what it's like in Morocco. We have a live interview with a millennial from Morocco who recently got married here in Korea. We're now going to hear what wedding culture is like in other parts of the world. Let's connect live to Hajar Magrani, a millennial who recently tied the knot. Welcome, Hajar.
Hello.
Hi.
Hajar, congratulations on getting married. Could you tell us a little bit more about when and where you got married and what it was like?
Thank you very much. Well, actually, I got married on papers last year, but we didn't have a wedding until last year, last month. And we had originally wanted to have a wedding, a spring wedding, but it was so hard to find an empty spot since our planning started pretty late. But upon attending some of our friends' modern weddings, my husband and I agreed that it's not what we want for our special day. So we decided to go for a traditional wedding. We've never attended one in person, but we just seen it on TV, and it was just so beautiful. We started looking up information online and decided to have the wedding in fall because, you know, fall in Korea is so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how
thankfully,
Sorry. Continue, sorry.
Thankfully, our wedding went exactly how we had imagined. It was just very meaningful. The best part that we were surrounded by people that we cared about and meant a lot to us. We had to arrive early to get our hair and makeup done. We had the chance to pick our Korean traditional wedding clothes. And when we put on the Korean traditional clothes, it was just so beautiful. For me personally, I felt like I was a queen from the Joseon dynasty.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, and when I looked at my husband, I really like fall in love with him again. Personally, I feel like Korean traditional weddings and Korean traditional hanbok is specifically is just so more beautiful than a modern white wedding dress.
Right,
we also
Hajar, I
had
can tell that you had such a great time enjoying a traditional Korean wedding then. But now I know you have a question that could actually compare what it's like.
So you are originally from Morocco and then you had a Korean wedding. So can you tell us what Moroccan weddings are and like what the biggest difference between the two weddings could be? And yeah, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, weddings in Morocco honestly are the best.
Oh.
The reason why I feel that way because they cost less and they last longer. So generally, weddings in Morocco require a lot of planning, and most of it has to be done by the bride and her family. So the bride has to find the wedding hall, the caterer to provide delicious Moroccan food, as well as a bridal stylist who would be responsible for helping the bride with her Moroccan wedding attire, jewelry, accessories, and everything, and also applying and maintaining her makeup and hairstyle throughout the wedding day. Before the wedding day, it is very typical for the bride to host a henna night, which is one of the most significant pre-wedding celebrations. It is a special evening where the bride's hand and feet are adorned with henna designs, and friends and family gather around to apply henna, sing traditional songs, and just celebrate with music and dance. And on the morning of the wedding day, there's another celebration called hammam ceremony, where the bride partakes traditional hammam. Like hammam is a public bathhouse.
That's like 목욕탕 in Korea.
Exactly, yeah, like a jinjeban. So she has to go there and she has to undergo like a thorough cleansing and beautification ritual. And this is seen as a symbol of purification and preparation for the wedding.
Right, Hajar, though you chose to do a wedding here in Korea, right? So if you were to do it all over again, where would you do it, Morocco or Korea?
I haven't done one in Morocco yet, but I think I would choose the one in Morocco.
Okay, for just like Nell, to you to get the full package, and I think that's what our generation is about. We consider our weddings to be a full experience. Thank you so much, Hajar. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, and expanding on what Hajar just said, she knows the pros and cons between Korean weddings and those in Morocco, and if she could do it again, she would choose one to do it in Morocco, which is completely understandable. It's a full experience.
Yes.
But any tips that you two, as married millennials, have for our viewers who are thinking of throwing a wedding one day?
You know, I think this kind of goes against everything we were talking about, how wonderful weddings are, but take it with a grain of salt. I feel like it's beautiful, but it is just one day, and you have the rest of your life to live together. And so I wouldn't put so much emphasis on it if I had to go back, because I did basically like 3 weddings.
You tried that, been there, done that. That's some realistic advice. What about you, Walter?
I agree with Niall there. To be honest with you, like it was supposed to be a very beautiful day, and it was, but I don't remember any of it.
It was just that hectic.
It was just so busy, so it was more of like me trying to place myself in positions on the wedding hall, and yeah, it was lovely to get married, but it was just a very busy day for me.
I think the wedding is just the start of a new chapter. It's just a very small part, but for many of us, even including myself, we have so many hopes for that day. But after hearing what you guys are saying, I realized not to be fixated on the wedding itself, but the marriage that lasts after. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Nell Song,
No problem.
and Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
All right, thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.